Monkgang represent. What's up, guys? It's Snoo. Today I'm going to give you all the juicy details about my plans, intentions, and goals going into the early access of Path of Exile 2. Just like all of you, I want to take it all in. I want to explore the game, see what the campaigns have to offer, taking that full experience twice over, I guess. Soak in all that lore. I didn't really pay attention to the story of the lore before, back when I started playing this game, and I know that they've been working really hard to improve that. I obviously want to see the end game. That's going to be the where all the longevity exists, a whole bunch of new systems in play. I'm expecting it to be an absolute fiesta of totally broken, imbalanced things. You guys are obviously going to want to pay attention as it persists through to see what's going on out there in the community, because you better believe there's going to be some crazy stuff going on. In fact, I may have stumbled on something myself already through all of the effort of theory crafting. But yeah, I know some of you want to go in as authentically blind as possible. I totally respect that, but you've been warned. This is a behemoth of a spoiler video. I even just spoiled the Invoker full ascendancy list, I guess, as a matter of fact. But anyway, we're going to be getting into a lot of different stuff in the numbers, a particular build I've been theory crafting. I do want to, of course, explicitly state this is not some kind of guide. I've not played this build. I try to be as thorough as I possibly can. Those of you who have followed what I've done in the past in PoE1, doing everything I can to mentally prepare you guys if you happen to try and follow what I'm doing. But I'm just going to share with you what I'm doing. And if you're going to play Invoker Monk, well, you certainly want to see what I have to show you, because it might include some things you hadn't thought of before. If not, well, you might still want to watch to see, you know, one particular angle of what it looks like to go way deep into the weeds of what is possible. Speaking of what is possible, I know that Grinding Gear's intention is to slow us down a bit, but you know how it is. I'm going to find a way. We're going to find a way to find some broken builds, some broken interactions. All you got to do is start layering some of these ridiculous synergies on top of each other. And in a game as robust and complex as this, that's going to be easier than ever. So let me show you what I've cooked up today. We're going to start with the Invoker Monk. And just as an honorable mention, Acolyte of Chayula, the Chaos Monk, looks pretty good. I will say that it looks like up front they introduced a lot of the really strongest Ascendancy notables and kind of hid some of the weaker stuff for us, and then the Invoker was the complete reverse. It just so happened I lucked out here that the Invoker ends up being even more defensive than the Chayula Monk, which is an absolute... The Chayula Monk is an absolute recovery chaos monster, okay? But the Invoker is more geared toward elemental ailments and spirit primarily, with some synergies with crit and even damage reduction. I'm not going to go into major detail about that, because we kind of look at this from, you know, a beginning to middle of the road. I don't want to try and anticipate what the very, very end is going to look like. But I do have a build here for you, a couple of them, actually. I'll have these all linked down below, and we're also going to be looking at this page here to go over some of the gems, and then I'm going to start, like I would normally, with the linchpin that ties all this together. This is what really forced my hand here, because as I was exploring the build before part of the passive tree was revealed, it became obvious to me that this game is designed around some skills being stronger than others, and those skills require a certain resource, in this case power charges, which don't offer you any benefit other than a fuel to use another skill. You're not supposed to be able to use skills that require power charges super frequently. Definitely not supposed to be able to spam them. However, when I see something like this, it kind of shakes my head a little bit, because it's really not that hard to shock and chill enemies a lot. And so you can kind of see where this is the beginning of exploring a build and trying to figure out what I can do with this. I am very interested in acquiring power charges as fast as possible. And now suddenly with this, I'm very interested in shocking and chilling enemies as fast as possible. And if you paid any attention down here, you'll see that numbers 4 and 5 do exactly that, or certainly contribute to it. Most notably number 5, in which case, so far with everything has been revealed, it does not appear to be particularly easy to get shocked ground in this game, especially in terms of single target or bosses or something like that. With power charges, if you were to explore that on here, you will see all kinds of different skills and abilities. And it was Flicker Strike that really got me interested when I saw it. I checked out the numbers. It kind of blew my mind when we got the initial endgame showcase. And so that is kind of the core ability I would like. I'm willing to bet that if there were any way to use Flicker Strike really frequently in game, it's probably going to be a strong build. And so that's kind of the overarching goal here. And again, in order to do that, I need to get a lot of power charges, and I need to shock and chill enemies pretty frequently, because otherwise, the way to get power charges more deterministically, and I would venture to say the second best way to do it, is Siphoning Strike. And if I'm going to show you kind of little, I guess, cutscene here on the right that can allow you to see what that looks like, and you'll see that gives power charges once you hit enemy. It's an AoE ability. You can get more. You can reap more power charges than just one at a time. It does require an enemy to be shocked already. The downside is that it rips the shock off, and so we're already kind of climbing uphill here to make all this work, right? But yeah, let's start with a little. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go back to the passive tree 1 second more, just kind of share the 3 really powerful notables. So we got Harmonic Generator. This is going to give me power charges when I shock a chilled enemy. And then we have +1 maximum power charges, which is going to be a pretty big deal. And then way over here, we got one with the Storm, which is quarterstaff skills that consume power charges count as consuming an additional power charge. I'm assuming that you get up to 3 maximum power charges by default, which means every Flicker Strike or every skill that requires power charges could essentially reap 5, effectively 5, each time. And so these are, I would say, the 3 most potent offensive notables that I'm looking at. There's all kinds of other notables here, and this is a somewhat fleshed out tree, which I've kind of thrown together. I can't necessarily anticipate. I will link this down below as well as all the other resources. But let's go back to this page. And again, this is a 2-part build. This is going to be the more endgame, more complex version. I'm going to start with a pretty simplified version. And I think this one would be relatively easy for people to follow, as a matter of fact. Going into the more complicated one is not necessarily going to be the case, and hopefully you understand why. The way I'm going to show you what I have in mind here is to just basically present it in terms of a rotation. If I were to, engage in combat initially, what would I do? And we're just going to start with the abilities and see what supports they have. I think that would be the simplest, fastest way to do it. All right, so the very first ability I'd probably use would be Tempest Flurry. This is a very quick attacking build, and if you see on the screen, you'll notice that combo points are acquired when you use this, not per skill use, but per actual hit. And this may be a universal thing across all skills. It certainly was in the case of the reveal. And that is going to spell really good news for sake of using the Tempest Bell, which I'm about to show in a second. But anyway, we got extended combo here, and then we got faster attacks and conduction, because this is a lightning skill. It's not technically a lightning skill. For some reason, it doesn't have a lightning tag, but it definitely looks like a lightning skill to me with all that conversion. And it's going to have a high chance of shocking. So this functions as 2 different things. Well, I guess 3. If you count kind of closing the gap a little bit, and then it's going to shock, and then it's going to give me combo points. The shocks is going to be for Siphoning Strike, to prep the monsters up so that when I use this, I will get power charges from it. This is going to be linked up with multiple charge, which is kind of obvious there, as well as area of effect, because in a pack of mobs, it will expand the area in which it can rip off things there. And then also at the same time, with the area of effect, it will give me a greater lightning exposure impact. I don't really care how much damage this does. This skill is not really for damage. It's not meant to be for that. It's just utility for power charges and lightning exposure. And as a reminder, Tempest Flurry is essentially utility for shocks and combo points, although it definitely has more damage potential. Down here with the combo points, we got Tempest Bell. This was revealed, and a lot of people got excited. Some people even think this is going to be an incredibly powerful skill. That remains to be seen, but in my opinion, I would expect to see this used certainly on bosses or really hard-hitting monsters, very tanky rares, that kind of thing. And just flowing through combat, if you're moving quickly, probably not going to have that much value. Hourglass will be our start here, because I'm not anticipating to move incredibly fast yet. So I think there's either one of 2 ways you can look at this. In this case, we're going to be going for the longer cooldown, harder damage. In another case, you could go for the shorter cooldown. We're going to see what that looks like on the next page. Pulverize is just going to be a generically good choice for this. It doesn't really matter what the attack speed is, because the attacks go out when I hit the bell. Increased area of effect and melee area damage is going to benefit it very well. So Pulverize is a terrific support for this, for damage. And then my anticipation, assuming that I shock the bell, it's going to do lightning damage, because that's what it does on here. It's going to take on the damage type. It's not automatically going to shock enemies, but it will pretty frequently if I keep hitting it enough, right? And so those shocks will start to proliferate. If I shock one enemy on that AoE, it's going to shock a lot of them nearby. And again, remember, shocks are very, very important. But so is chill, and that's why we have Wave of Frost down here, and this ability is going to give us a decent chance to freeze enemies. It's going to do a lot of cold damage. It's going to give us a chance to chill, and if we do freeze, we'll get some chilled ground, which may not be necessary because I might just take number 4 here. I am the Blizzard. On freezing enemies, grant chilled ground. But you can kind of see how a rotation begins here. You do Tempest Flurry, and then you do Siphoning Strike, and then you do Tempest Bell, and then you do Wave of Frost. Now, Wave of Frost is a little bit awkward because it's actually a sort of disengage. It will send you backwards. Well, this is kind of nice, especially in terms of Flicker Strike. It could close the gap immediately. But in this case, I can't start with Flicker Strike because it's a higher level skill. I believe it requires level 10 like the gem itself, minimum is like 10 or 13 or something. So it will take a while to reach the level to use that. We're going to have to start with Falling Thunder or some other power charge thing. Now, this is an example of ability that looks super cool, but I have a feeling it's going to play a little clunky. It's a slam skill. There's some, moving through the process. You kind of move through the skill. It seems to be a little awkward. I don't know if it has a good directional component to it. I'm not sure how much I'll like this, but it's obviously a pretty powerful attack, and I'll deal with using it for a while. I think it'll be a great way to introduce the players to the monk and kind of get you used to some of the dynamism about it. Some fast hitting attacks, some really hard slamming hitting attacks. It's just going to have a lot of great feel to it. And of course, these attacks can hit the bell too. Everything can hit the bell there. Perpetual Charge is an obvious choice to get those power charges back, in which case occasionally I can spam it. Added lightning damage and then weapon elemental damage. These are a couple of supports that will synergize well together because this does a lot of damage, and it can do even more lightning damage with added lightning damage, and then most of the damage is elemental, so this makes sense to use this here. Just 4 links. Just 4 links around. There obviously are some options for 5 links, but I just decided to make a 4-link setup here. And so, yeah, just final reminder, Tempest Flurry into Siphoning Strike, and then a bell goes down, Wave of Frost backs you out, and then you come back in with Falling Thunder. And then just kind of repeat that process, although you wouldn't necessarily have to keep doing Tempest Flurry. You might be able to drop Tempest Flurry in that rotation, and possibly even Wave of Frost to a certain extent. Probably going to have to keep doing Siphoning Strike to get the power charges, though. Now, down here, I have decided to take the lazy approach, which isn't normally something I do, but going with Blasphemy to get the auras in for curses, wrap the curses into an aura. Not going to have Whispers of Doom yet, just going to have 1 curse. I don't know exactly what curse I'm going to use, but let's just say it's Enfeeble. Universally decent choice. And then we got Heightened Curse because that's going to increase the effectiveness of the curse, which I don't think will increase the mana or spirit cost anyway. And then Precision. Now, everybody's going to want to have some kind of aura on because we have Precision, Vitality, and Clarity as options there, and you can get those into an aura pretty easily. It looks like it's not going to be very difficult or it's going to be very good cost efficiency to get those. I'll probably put Precision in if I have 1 gem available. We recently found out that Blasphemy got nerfed really, really hard in terms of effectiveness, but I think I'll still go this route. Okay, I'm going to use something different on the next page, but for now, easy route. I'm going to try to learn the game, explore the game, without trying to focus too much on combat. I'm going to ease my way into this. Speaking of that, purely automated cast on shock. Now, this seems kind of obvious. I may make a video on this later. There is 1 line in here that is actually kind of damning here, and it says once per skill use. Gain 20 energy when you shock an enemy with a hit from a skill, any skill, but only once per skill use. And as you can see, well, this skill is going to hit at least twice. This skill might hit up to 12 times. This skill is going to hit 4 or 5 times. And so it's a bit of a bummer here to have this line here, once per skill use, right? Because I'm going to be shocking quite often, beyond just tapping the skills on the keyboard. But at any rate, this is what I'm going to stick with for now. I'm going to do something different later, but I'm going to try to fit in Charge Staff. Now, this is where things start to, the imagination starts to stretch a little bit, because I would suspect some people might be skeptical about the idea of using 2 power charge spenders in 1 build. And this may or may not work, we'll see. But my anticipation is the somewhat frequent trigger effect of Charge Staff will still leave me plenty of room to use Falling Thunder on the regular. And this will gradually ramp up over time. I don't really expect Cast on Shock to go off more than once every like 5 seconds. And so increase or more duration is going to be nice for this. Charge staff, it allows me to have like projectiles that go around, and you've seen that in the reveal. It actually looks pretty powerful. It's going to offer even more chances to chill and shock, I would say. And then Voltaic Mark, I'm going to probably try to get a mark into the build. And there are other unique ways to get a mark in the build, but this is a nice automatic way that's just going to keep it up and easy. So a great deal of automation going on here. I don't have to click a single thing. I get the aura in there. I get precision on. I get a stacking charge staff buff. I get the mark going on. I don't have to press a single thing. It's just going to come in automatically over time. So that is step one, and that's kind of the early game. This would be like level 20 to 30 to 40, maybe 50. That's what that's going to look like. Now, things get a little bit spicier when we move on to the next one. In this case, this is step two. This is more closer to endgame. Full-blown 6-link setup. Missing one, a flex slot. I'm not exactly sure what to do with that. But this is going to be a lot different. Now I'm about to show you something that might blow your mind a little bit here. We're going to start with a rather confusing gem that not 100% sure how it works. Cast on shock will still be here. Okay? The cast on shock setup is still kind of similar, so it's here, except now I have Profane Ritual, which will be really nice moving from pack to pack, because it will essentially give me a power charge over time. Essentially, every single combat moment, going out of combat to combat again, I'll probably have at least one power charge because of this. And so that'll be nice. More duration still there, so kind of similar. And then precision and clarity. So I have now moved Voltaic Mark out and put it in a different place, which you'll see in a moment. Now, I actually have 2 elemental invocations, and I don't really know if this is going to work, but as I assume, this is how it works. And I'm actually going to pull it up over here, because there's an issue with the site. There are some buggy issues with the site. One of them is, or maybe just outdated issues. So one of them is elemental invocation reads differently, and this seems to be a lot more balanced. Gains 25 energy when you shock, gains 25 energy when you ignite, or 125 energy when you freeze. I'm not going to be doing any fire damage with this build, probably, but I'm going to be freezing sometimes and shocking really, really, really often. But you'll notice the line is missing per skill use. This is a little bit odd to me, except when I remind myself that the developers want us to stop automating things so much. They're pushing incredibly high penalties for purely automating things, like in the case of cast on shock. This is not a purely automated thing. This is a decision to use, kind of creates a sort of ultimate skill or skill package that you use when you want. So you have more control over it, but it is another button you would have to press. Up to 500 energy. And without going into too much detail, this is going to allow me to press, one skill like 4 times, 5 times, or like 3 skills, twice over, going off instantly. So you kind of understand what that'll look like. In the case of the top row, I would start combat with this setup, and I would have Ball Lightning. Now, Ball Lightning you got to see from the Archmage trailer and stuff. You already know kind of what that looks like, right? 750% more chance to shock. Seems kind of obvious, even though I'm not a spell build. If my goal is to shock as much as humanly possible, well, I almost think that Ball Lightning itself is going to keep feeding both of these elemental invocations and cast on shock. It's just going to automatically, I could see a situation where I go from 0 to 500 energy in 1 second flat in some scenarios. Because I'm also going to have Frostbolt, which is going to be really good for getting chilled ground out simply, so that's nice. And so you can see this is a pretty incredible synergy when you think about it, because this is, what's this going to do? It's going to put chilled ground everywhere, and it's going to shock everything on top of the chilled ground. So everything's going to get chilled and shocked almost automatically. And that's especially good because I can shock the hard way, but I can't really chill the hard way. I can't chill super easily. So chilled ground is going to be very big deal. Wild shard, because wild not. It's going to be crazy seeing those circular expenditures out there, and multiple projectiles, because why not? Just go ham, just go crazy. Instead of 1, how about 3 projectiles of each Frostbolt and Ball Lightning going down. And at the end, area of effect, because they are both AoE skills, and so increased area of effect should have tremendous benefit, either for like fast-moving small hitbox bosses, or in any kind of mapping content, I would think. And so you can imagine that you would start combat with this basically full on energy as it carries over from the previous moment of combat, and you just initiate combat just blasting out a bajillion forms of lightning and cold damage instantly, shocking and chilling everything. This sounds like a pretty good idea, right? And then over time, as you finish combat, you just kind of let this go. Now, it might be possible I spam this. It might have an issue with mana as well. is kind of an unforeseen. But this is how I would start combat in this case. Next up, I would use Hand of Chayula. Hand of Chayula is a really powerful palm attack for monks only. We're going to have a pretty uniquely powerful way to get curses and marks out, certainly, and I think I would like to use this more towards the end game. Siphoning Strike has been replaced because I think the power charges are going to be rolling in from that passive notable plenty. I'm probably not going to need Siphoning Strike anymore. So functionally, it's nice thing. When I like to upgrade a build, I like to upgrade it not functionally so much, but just in terms of just stats and different things. So I'm still going to feel like I'm playing the same build. Just replace Siphoning Strike with Hand of Chayula. Get those curses out. 2 curses this time. We'll probably have Whispers of Doom. Don't know exactly what they'll be, but Enfeeble and Temp Chains will be nice. Longer lasting shocks and chills would be nice as well. Sniper's Mark is listed here because there's an issue with the website. This should still be Voltaic Mark, but I can't plug it in here. I want you to know that Voltaic Mark is the one I intend to use. Neural Overload is kind of a new support, and I think without any other intrinsic way, this is probably the only way to just kind of manually get electrocution into a build. I'm not 100% sure how this will work, but I suppose if you hit an enemy with Hand of Chayula, and then there's going to be electrocution priming and building up, and then you use Hand of Chayula one more time with marked enemies, and they will just be stunned for a short period of time. Bosses included, so it could be nice. This is definitely a flexible thing. Maybe or maybe not use that. All right, so as a reminder, Elemental Invocation with all of these spells into Hand of Chayula. Now everything's shocked, chilled, repeatedly getting shocked and chilled. It's all cursed up. It's got marks, at least one mark going out there, certainly for single target. That'll be nice. Now it'll be time to use Tempest Flurry to get those combos and Lightning, let's see, Lightning Pen or Exposure. Okay, now we're going to put Exposure down here because it requires a type of lightning attack. And hopefully Tempest Flurry works with us, although I'm not 100% sure because it does have a lightning and duration tag and it's not listed here, but I'll be awfully surprised if lightning exposure doesn't work on a skill that inherently does lightning damage. Well, anyway, again, another unknown. Again, just trying to shock and get exposure and get combo points. The bell will be thrown down next, this time a little different, increased limit. And this is where the imagination really starts to have to stretch because suddenly, the bell went from 8-second cooldown for 6-second duration to no cooldown. In fact, you can throw 2 down, but they only have a 3-second duration, and you still need the combo points for them. So the pacing, the combat pacing would have to be ramped up significantly for this to make sense. However, I suspect what my hope is here is I put a bell down, and what that means is while the bell is down, I can now start accumulating combo points for the next bell. That is the hope. And I anticipate that I'll probably hit the bell 12 times or more in 3 seconds in many cases. Pulverize is still here. Shock chance. Now this is me kind of taking the angle of let's just put out as many shocks as humanly possible. Okay. Default shock chance. This is not increased shock chance. This just means a flat 20% chance of shock on any lightning hit, I believe, regardless of how weak or powerful it is. Coursing current would proliferate those shocks. Overcharge would make those shocks stronger for less duration. And so now I'm not really using the bell so much as a damage component. It is for damage, but it's really just to get a stupid amount of shocks out there. And this would be especially potent single target when I can't rely as much otherwise on getting the shocks back. I would expect this to shock bosses really, really well. Down here, we got Wave of Frost, which is still here, and this is going to do similar things before. Now, attacks, if 20% extra damage is cold on freezing enemies, that would be nice to have that global attack buff. Glaciation is down here. Okay, some extra freeze buildup. Extra cold damage, just focusing on cold pen, biting cold exposure. So now I have lightning and cold exposure on the build. All right, so again, we're going to start with the Ball Lightning, Frostbolt, whip those out. Hand of Chayula, Tempest Flurry. Okay, curses, everything, all the debuffs are out. Shocks are out. Combo points are up. Tempest Bell, Wave of Frost, Disengage, boom, close the gap, Flickering Strike. And from here, well, you can probably use Flickering Strike a lot. Maybe Flickering Strike, one other, Flickering Strike, one other. Flickering Strike, Bell, Flickering Strike, Tempest Flurry, Flickering Strike, Wave of Frost, Flickering Strike, Hand of Chayula. Gotta get those debuffs out. Probably just going to be flipping back and forth, something like that, as the rotation will become very Flicker Strike heavy at that point. And in order to assist that, oh, I almost forgot, we got some really good supports introduced back in here now. We got Perpetual Charge, which is still there. Close Combat, probably not going to work as well with Falling Thunder. It might be good, but it's definitely going to be good with Flicker Strike. As well as Concentrated Effect. Don't care so much about the AoE. This is the primary damage, single target damage ability. Added lightning damage with weapon elemental damage. Might be a bit of a goofy combo since this doesn't inherently convert. I would be looking for pure global fizz to lightning conversion somewhere on the gloves or something like that if it exists in order to make this better. But you can see we're definitely just trying to make this as powerful as possible. And remember, power charges should be flooding in constantly. So, you know, you use 5. Sometimes I can actually press it twice. It's going to attack, what, 16 times? 16 flickers each time. You know, 16 flickers, 1 ability. 16 flickers, 1 ability. 16 flickers, 1 ability. 11 flickers, 1 ability. You know, sometimes I might not be full on power charges. All the meanwhile, the charge staff will still be going up. Should have plenty of power charges flooding in for that. And then down here, I'm going to show you probably the most curious and interesting one. This has evolved since a recent video. Elemental Invocation with Eye of Winter. Definitely going to be one of the most powerful supports for Invoker, potentially. This is a really unique ability. I haven't seen it in action in PoE2. But this is going to shoot out a bunch of shards that are going to take on the damage type of elemental grounds that it falls over. Remember, as a reminder, the monk, shocked ground, freezing ground, is going to be a big deal for this class. We have chilled ground going out in multiple ways now, of course, and I may be able to drop this ascendancy point 4 because I don't need the chilled ground again. I will probably keep 5 at least for a really long time. But at any rate, this is going to shoot out an orb that is going to, I mean, there's going to be chilled and shock ground everywhere on the map, presumably. So it's just going to naturally fall over that, and it's going to shoot the shards out. And then those will be doing a lot of cold and lightning damage as well. Spell Echo, because why not make it go out twice in a row? Do all that extra damage. It's going to be shocking enemies over chilled ground constantly. Inspiration, I'm expecting this to cost a lot of mana. This skill is very high end, level 13 requirement. It already has a high cost of mana, so I am definitely concerned about the mana cost. And then down here we got something brand new. I've been racking my head around where I want to put Innervate. Still not sure. All right, so this is such a curious one. I really want this buff up 100% of the time. For one reason, because it actually registers different here. Attacks gain 35% of damage as lightning damage for only 3 seconds on killing a shocked enemy with supported skills. That's quite a stipulation in a very short period of time. But man, that's a lot of extra damage. What in the world? So, I have to kill an enemy with the link. The enemy has to be shocked. Every enemy is going to be shocked. Why not try Lightning Warp? It's a spell. It can even be supported by Spell Echo. It's just going to target everything. And so this is a Flicker Strike build. Double Flicker Strike. Or Flicker Strike Warp build. I don't know. I'm going to be teleporting like nobody's business. And some of you might not like the sound of that. However, I have good news. This is not like PoE1's Flicker Strike plus Shroud Walker or something from a Headhunter buff. No, I'm in control of this. I choose when to use Flicker Strike, and I choose, I think, when to initiate this elemental invocation to use this. So if I don't want to be randomly teleporting, I don't have to. But if I do want to, I want to open up the door for that, great. And the nice thing is about this, you know, even if I'm teleporting everywhere, I can just Flicker Strike right after. So, you know, I can teleport somewhere that off to the side and then lose my orientation. I might Flicker Strike right back into combat, that sort of thing. So I could foresee this being ridiculously strong. Oh yeah, and one big reason for this is Flicker Strike gives you, or Lightning Warp gives you shock ground for 10 whole seconds. My goodness, that's a long shock ground. Might be like overkill, but it will call the enemy, so it will kick off Innervate. It should be up a lot in mapping content. And so I foresee this being quite a powerful punch here. The Eye of Winter, getting all those shocks, the chill, the frost bolts going out if I want to keep spamming this. Honestly, I don't know what this is going to look like. It might look absolutely ridiculous, but this could be, in best case scenario, I'm able to spam both elemental invocations once every second, 2 seconds. It sends out like 3 Eyes of Winter and 2 Lightning Warps that get duped, both of them. So that's 6 Eyes of Winter and 4 Lightning Warps. Would constantly be teleporting everywhere. Ball lightning, multiple ball lightnings and frost bolts going out if I'm using that. Perhaps these are off the GCD and can be used even mid-flicker, possibly. That would be, again, best case scenario. Now, there is a possibility that many of these things are not going to work nearly as well as I think they are. But you know what? Even if half of them are totally broken, this is still going to be a wildly powerful build. And that's why I'm like super excited for it. You notice Flicker Strike cannot gain power charges while using this skill. So I am going to have to kind of it's going to force my hand to that. I can't Flicker Strike, shock everything, and then just immediately have the power charges. They must have figured that out in their testing. That wasn't going to work. So that's it for the build. That's my plans on how that's going to work. Last thing to look at will be the remainder of the passive tree. My initial plans, based on what I see here, this could totally change, but just being able to see the abilities or the notables that I can. Probably go up this way, get an immediate 5% damage as extra cold. Global for the entire build will be nice to help me chill naturally. Max power charge here. Really important one here. Go straight up this way. Go off to the right. Probably pit stop right here with increased duration. Unbound Force is just ridiculous for this build. Maybe wrap around here. I think it's Cold Pen and probably Lightning Pen right here if I had to guess. And then off to the staff nodes with Quarterstaff consumed power charges while getting an extra one. This is attack speed, crit multi, damage. Just obviously just going to be a great wheel there. And then we'll move up this way. I think a lot of builds are going to do this kind of thing. A bunch of lightning stuff here, which I can't see at all. One sort of X factor is recovery. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to go energy shield focus or life focus. We'll have to figure out if I can find any way to leech energy shield. Shout out to the Chayula Monk. Then that would be a great thing. But in the meantime, we're going to be forced to use mana and life flask, or we'll just have them there doing nothing. So, I mean, I might as well maybe try to make it an energy shield flask and then focus on energy shield in ways like this. Okay, and then you can see a node like this, Spectral Ward, is going to synergize incredibly well with number 1, gain spirit for every 15 energy shield on equipped body armor. That's a terrific synergy right there. If we can make energy shield the primary defense, and we got 60% increased energy shield here. It looks like going for the increased energy shield recharge rate's probably not going to go very well. Whispers of Dooms up here and a bunch of lightning damage things and a few other little things here over here with like max all res and oh yeah, stun threshold is going to be kind of important perhaps. I don't know what Eldritch Battery is going to offer. There's still a few other things here. And of course, when the game gets loaded up, I'm probably going to take a good 20 minutes or so to map out the passive tree. But if just knowing what I know now, this would be my general route. I foresee there almost no way that I don't immediately go for both power charge nodes and the shocked on power charge thing. Probably going to do that. So I feel very blessed that even in the face of not being able to change ascendancies, currently we're probably not able to. The Invoker turned out to be really, really strong. Later on, I might be able to drop both 4 and 5. I might try Avatar, but I actually think it's an unbound Avatar. I think it's a bit overrated, to be honest. And I might sink my teeth into 8 and 9 down here with a crit and 1 and 2. The most upscaled in-game build version would probably be Ascendancy 1, 2, 8, 9, I would guess. If not 1, 2, 5, 8, if I need that shocked ground still. Remains to be seen. Remember, critical strikes do not automatically inflict elemental ailments. It's all about the threshold now. I believe shock, for example, is a 30% effectiveness, and that's it. I mean, you have increased effective shock and stuff maybe, but that's just kind of a rumor I've heard. So guys, that's it. Aside from just enjoying the game and having fun, this is a, I mean, I wouldn't call anything short of highly theory-crafted Monk potential, super fast, wicked fast, lightning warping fast, Flicker Strike Monk. Still don't know what to call it. Maybe I'll take some suggestions in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about all of this. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I've been really looking forward to posting this video. I knew like a whole week or two ago I would be making a video on this, and I've enjoyed watching some of the other creators on some of their ideas. I haven't taken a look at other ascendancies. I've been, neck deep in Monk theory crafting, so I apologize. I can't really compare it to other ones. If you ask me which ascendancy is best, Snoo, out of all of them, that's not the way I approached it this time around. I pick one thing and I dive as deep as you possibly can. That's what we're gonna do. That's how I play this game, as many of you well know. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.